This is the shift knob from my sim setup. It shifts through the gears well enough, but just look at it. It's boring. And I may be a boring person, but this is simply too boring. Let's make it marginally less boring. First, I had to determine the thread size of the shift knob. Online, I found that the thread of the knob itself was M12 1.5, but I kinda wanted to attach it to the shaft attachment, and I couldn't find that anywhere online. So for your own reference, after some trial and error, I can report that the thread size of the shaft of the Moza HGP shifter is M7 1.0. This is a big chunk of scrap aluminum. I have absolutely no idea where it came from, but I know exactly where it's going. First, I had to take off that weird bit at the end. To do this, I had to use a device that apparently destroys both metal and audio. If you're wondering who recorded this, it was my dad, who also owns all the power tools in this video and helped me with some of the steps. If you thought a high schooler had their own garage full of expensive and dangerous equipment, you have extremely high expectations of high schoolers. In order to fit this big hunk right here into the lathe, I first tried rounding off the bad side into a circle. This might have worked, but with the mill I was using, it was going to take about 3 business days. This is as far as I was willing to go, and it was not enough to fit in the lathe. So instead, I measured out some angles, and it magically became triangular. No, I didn't just forget to record it. Why would you suggest that? Anyway, the piece can now fit in the lathe, which meant I could finally launch a bunch of hot aluminum chips in every direction. You might ask, how do I know they were hot? Eventually, the piece was round and I could start shaping it. I used this tool, which has a bunch of identical strips of metal and one that is annoyingly longer than the others, to approximate the shape I was going for. Before shaping it, I captured this very satisfying footage of smoothing out the surface. If you think this is taking too long, imagine all the stuff I cut out. Like that. See? It's round now. Don't ask me why I was wearing one glove. I don't know either. After magically rounding out the other side as well, I marked out some lines for grips and cut those out. Yes, I'm aware this sounds very pleasant to the ears. Before we took it off the lathe, we drilled and tapped out the hole. Don't worry, I made sure to oil it up before sticking it in. Unfortunately, however, when we took it off the lathe and tested it, the thread size was wrong. Here's what happened with the thread size. Since this was the measurement I couldn't find anywhere online, we took the shaft to Home Depot and screwed it on a few different sized threads to see which one fit the best. Somehow, this ended up being a thread that was a bit too small and a bit too coarse, although I didn't realize it at the time. This would fit inside the shaft, but a shaft made with this thread size wouldn't fit on the shifter. On the second Home Depot run, I brought the whole ass shifter and embarrassingly tried screwing that clunky thing into the test threads. No footage exists of this incident. Fortunately, this time we were able to find the correct thread size. They didn't sell an M7 1.0 tap, so we just bought a bolt and jankily turned it into a tap. I didn't get any footage of our newly made tap, so this is what it ended up looking like at the very end of the process. After using the new tap, the knob now finally screwed onto the shifter. Since the knob was now fully machined, it was time to powder coat it to match the other parts in my sim setup. We created an attachment to hold it up using our janky bolt/tap and coated it in some powder. I didn't want to get my phone covered in said powder, so I did not record this part. However, I did record it baking. Baking a powder coat is oddly similar to baking a cake, even down to the temperature. You could probably look up a chocolate cake recipe and get some decent powder coating results. We had bored out a shallow hole at the top in order to inlay a small piece of titanium. The fun part about titanium is that you can anodize it to be pretty much any color with some electrolyzed water and a high voltage DC power supply. The surface of the titanium changes color depending on the highest voltage that is run through it and for how long, so I was able to anodize it purple, scratch out my channel name, and then anodize it again at a lower voltage to get a different color. The contrast didn't turn out amazing, but at least I know it's there. The last step was to glue this piece on with some super glue. I screwed the knob onto the shifter to see how it would be aligned and then glued it on. For the unlikely scenario that you ever need to superglue something to a powder-coated surface, apparently you can clean the excess glue off with acetone without damaging the surface. This will probably help 0 people. Anyway, the shift knob was finally done and all I had to do was test it. Alright, so I'm going to be trying it for the first time now. And first, got the old knob. I'm going to screw that on. I'm not expecting it to be super different. It's definitely got a little bit of a different shape to it. Should let me get a different grip on there. It's also shorter, so with my stance, I'm pretty low down, so that might be nice to have it a little bit shorter down as well. But yeah, I'm not expecting any like huge improvements or anything. I'm just expecting a shift knob. Alright, I got out my car here, and this will be the old shift knob, so just get a reference. I've already used this obviously, so I know how it feels and all, but just get another feel for it. Yeah, I mean, it feels like a shift knob, as I would expect from a shift knob. This is the default one I've been using the whole time, so I should not be surprised. If I was surprised, then I'd test myself for dementia or something, because, well, that'd be kind of concerning. Alright, I think that's my cue to try the new one. Alright, so it's on there. In terms of how it fits in with the rest of the setup, I mean, everything's got a different texture anyway. Some of the powder coating is just a bit different. This is plastic. This is like fake leather. So yeah, it doesn't stand out too much in terms of how it actually feels to use. Oh yeah, actually, I do feel a big difference. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't trying to get my hopes up, but that positioning is a lot more ergonomic. It's a lot closer to where my hand naturally goes. I don't have to go like that as much, so that's nice. I've also got a bit more leverage because it's longer. Instead of just being a sphere, it's a capsule shape. So, yeah, in that regard, I think I accomplished my goal pretty well. It feels completely fine to hold, no issues with the shaping or anything. I mean, this is kind of all I could have asked for. I wasn't expecting much. So, yeah, I'd say that's a success. So yeah, that was the whole process that I went through. I know this was kind of a different video from what I usually do. I mean, I already do pretty varied content. I mean, just look at my channel. But I'm hoping you still enjoyed it because this was pretty fun. And if this video miraculously does well, then this is something that I might do again in the future. Who knows? I mean, not this specifically, but you get what I mean. So tell me what you thought in the comments. And I'll also tell you a secret. I still don't know how to end videos.